Ayo, what's up? It's Rashad, Antonio, OG, of course. MC Collective, man. Season 2, episode 5 of Loki. Science slash fiction. All spoilers. Got to talk about the thing to talk about the thing. And I'm just going to say it again. We're 5 for 5, Tony. And,
Yeah.
and I don't have, like, I really, like, contemplated what I was going to say about this episode today
hmm
as I was at work. I saw this like
hmm
1.25 times. And
Okay.
because I just was like kind of like trying to find some stuff. So as I rewatched it again, like the the end of the episode, okay? The end of the episode when he is having the conversation and Loki is talking to Sylvie. He has to kind of have this. I mean,
Come to
essentially,
Jesus.
yeah, they had this legit come to Jesus meeting about who Loki is, and like
hmm
because of course they're one and the same. And he's like, man, like she's like trying to really dig into him, like, what do you want? I want to say the TVA. And like, no, you don't, like, what did you really want? And
I want to save the universe. I want to
yeah,
save the
I want
multiverse.
all of it. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Oh.
man, like, shut up, Loki, you lying.
hmm
And when he really figures out, like, yo, like, I want my friends. I was like, yo. Whew.
And we have to remember what makes what makes him saying that so poignant and so important is this is Loki before his redemption in what was it in Thor 3. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Thor 3 and Thor 2. This is still asshole Loki from after being caught at the end, you know what I'm saying?
Battle of New
At the
York,
end
Loki.
of
You know what I'm
a
saying?
Battle of New York Loki, you know what I'm saying? He's like, oh, you know what I'm saying, bow down to me and all this stuff. And he get to the TVA and he's a jerk and he's just like, he feel like he's just gonna use them for his greater end. And all this stuff happened since. And for this version of Loki to say something like that is a big deal. Is a real big deal for him to
Tony,
even say
Tony,
that.
Tony. Like, and for me, like this version of Loki actually has come full circle. Do you realize why?
Mm-hmm.
Because now he's really been burdened with glorious purpose. Like for real now. Like he
Yeah.
actually found his true purpose, and his true purpose was to be there for his people. And
Mm-hmm.
that really, I mean these humanistic elements in these shows is what really gets to me, because that's what it's really all about. I mean, if you want to be corny, like I told you this morning, this show is really about the friends we made along the way. And when
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I cannot believe that's really the theme of this for Loki. That's the theme of him. That's the theme of the show for him. Is the
Thank
friends he
you
made
for
along the
being
way.
a friend. Thank you for being a friend.
I mean, when you boil it all down to it, no, I'm saying
Yeah.
multiverse, timelines, Kang,
Mm-hmm.
all this other stuff. What it really boils down to is him wanting his friends back. And
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's just a real beautiful place to kind of like anchor your writing in, because
Yeah.
everything leads up to him, of course, one, only being about himself, two, only
Mm-hmm.
wanting power just for the sake of having power. And then for
Mm-hmm.
him to have this full mea culpa and this basically this walkabout to say, look, yo, like I think I really found what I wanted. And what I really want is community. I want to be a
Mm-hmm.
part of something. Even when he was in Thor Ragnarok, he really wasn't about that. Like what he really wanted was, of course, he wanted to rule Asgard, and he did
Mm-hmm.
for a minute, even though he was cloaked as their dad. But like
Mm-hmm.
he really, you still ask about it.
He wanted to be, he wanted to feel appreciated, and he wanted, like you said, to have some type of community. And in the main timeline, the only person that ever made him feel appreciated and feel a part of community was his mother, Frigga. Frigga was the only one that made him
Yeah.
feel that way. That's why he snapped. in Thor 2, when after he found out that she died, and he had the illusion up like his cell was still normal. And then when they dropped the illusion, you saw he basically destroyed the cell because that was his mother that passed. She was the only one that always had his back no matter what. And she knew he was such an asshole. And like you said, for him to just to come out his mouth to tell Sylvie, look, I want my friends back. And it was just like, oh wow.
It was a good moment, man. Like
Yeah.
just for storytelling and also
Mm-hmm.
for him as a character. And to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, like to when we watch these shows, a lot of times they have to be reflections of reality. And some of course
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of fantastical elements, but storytelling, especially when it comes to just the regular Joseph Campbell, you know what I'm saying, hero's journey, it has to
Mm-hmm.
follow this sort of pattern where our hero really has to feel something. So that's where like a lot of the shows, especially on Disney Plus, like don't have no weight to it
It has to make
because
you care about. It has to
yeah,
make you care about the
yeah,
character.
definitely got to care.
You
Like
know.
now Loki was hella cool first, just
Mm-hmm.
a cool. Tom Hiddleston played him cool.
Yeah.
He was a cool character, cool, best,
Right.
arguably the best villain of there with Thanos. But
Yeah.
then like kind of have them pivoting towards him being the anti-hero and now like the legit hero. I mean, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and still giving them wiggle room for him to be the anti-hero is just good writing, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, just great writing, and I mean, that is the for me what makes a great show is like I said, making you care about those characters. You think about some of the greatest shows of all time. What happened? You care about those characters. Like my favorite show of all time is The Wire. The Wire is my favorite show of all time, and
Mm-hmm.
there are so many characters on that show that like I really genuinely cared. Like I cared about. You cared about. Same thing with Game of Thrones in the beginning. It made you them first 5 or 6 seasons. It made you really care about certain characters up there until they kind of jumped the
Shoot, they
shark.
made you they made you care about Ned Stark, and then they killed that bastard. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, to snatch it away, snatch it away, and that's kind of what Loki did the last episode. Made you because remember at the end of the last episode, you and me were like, we don't know. I mean, they was like, yo, where do you think was going? I don't know. I mean, it looks like they wiped everything out, and I mean, basically how the this episode starts off is the saying the flash of light from at the end, and Loki closes
Yo.
his eyes, and then he opens his eyes, and everyone is gone except for
Uh-huh.
him. And it kind of and that takes me back to why I think he was the only one left, was because, like I said, he purged himself from the timeline. And what was that? The first episode or second
Mm-hmm.
episode, when he purged himself, and I think that's why he was the only one left. And then because of that, what happened? He starts daggone time jumping again,
Yeah,
and how
yeah,
they did it
he was
again.
time slipping everywhere, yo.
Yeah, how time slip and how they did the time slip again was just so great. He saw himself holding the TV. He's like, "Hey," and he went away and he started walking and looking, and the next thing you know, he was in that same spot, like literally 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, him
Mm-hmm.
taking the book, which was very important.
Very, yeah,
And
yeah, 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 yeah. Real important, Tony. Let's just talk about
I
the
got one
stru-
question though.
Go ahead, go ahead, go
So
ahead.
before we go, so would that been a that had to been an alternate timeline because it's spaghettified, or was that the sacred timeline? You see what I'm saying?
But
Like
there,
that.
but also remember the TVA really ain't got no time.
Th- yeah, I mean, dude, I don't listen. I
Yo,
I
yeah,
don't
like
know.
they,
Yeah,
yeah, man, like that's
yeah,
why now like everything is like all of the branches are just fading away because
yeah.
the main thing is it. So if that is okay, if that is a sacred timeline, then the
Mm-hmm.
whole premise of this episode makes much more sense. All right,
Yes.
because we got to make sure that the sacred timeline is intact. So the entire universe as we know it can be intact. That's what he was saying. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I need y'all so we can fight what's coming, and what's coming is nothing. You know what I'm saying? And in the
Yeah.
context of this show. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy, man. Let's okay. The
But
way that they show, the way that they show timelines being pruned and how it looks visually, fam,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so it looks it's so good. Like the
Yeah.
first scene when he comes in, he's like, and everything is just like liquefying in like
Mm-hmm.
threads. You know what I'm saying? And all these
Mm-hmm.
strands. All matter of fact, all these vines. You know what I'm saying? Just
Mm-hmm.
coming, like just being imploded. It's so like I'm sorry. Like I know it sounds like we fangirling over this, but I don't
Yeah.
care. It
Yeah.
looks so good. The
It look.
people who like they really took their time to do everything with this show. Like it
Mm-hmm.
looks like everybody who was on this was A, having fun, B, they really
Mm-hmm.
cared about it, and C, they wanted
Mm-hmm.
to make sure they gave us the best product.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I don't, man,
Yeah.
Tony, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So what was crazy was just finding out the alternate time branches of what some of the guys were doing. So the first
Yeah,
alternate time branch we get to is you in a prison. You're like, the hell is this? And it's Casey. Casey, sweet, lovable. Hey man, I love you, Ouroboros. I've read the manual front and back, multiple times. Casey is like a master like thief in the 60s, and he's escaping Alcatraz, which is
yeah.
just, aka the Rock.
He's a whole criminal. And the funny thing is too,
He's a
like
whole,
and
and his name is Frank.
yeah, sort of like Loki with the HG Wells last season.
Mm-hmm.
He's the other person in that in the oh my god, I can't talk. He's the person that got away from the whole Alcatraz
Mm-hmm.
from that when it happened back in the 60s when they broke out. Like one person actually
Yeah.
never got caught. So he's supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
that person who never got caught.
Right. Right. And I mean, you see him like he's like, Casey is me, and he's like, I don't know you, and why do you keep calling me Casey? They were like, the other dudes escaping were like, yo, we thought your name was Frank, and he was like, yo, it is. I don't know who this guy is, what that, and Loki's like, oh my god, here we go again. And then the next person he slips to is you see Hunter B-15, and she's a doctor,
Yeah,
a pediatrician possibly. And she's very nurturing with the little girl, telling her, hey, yo, you broke your arm. Like, so let me write a reminder on your cast on, things not to do. It wrote up there, don't climb trees. And she looked at him and was like, you gonna climb him anyway, ain't you? Little girl was like, yep. And she was like, well, it is what it
mom,
is
I
type
tried,
thing.
mom.
Mom, I tried. And so then she goes in the hallway and she sees Loki tweaking because he's time slipping. And she's like, yo, what is going on here? And that was like 2021 or 22, where you see, you know what I'm saying? When you see that. Then we finally get to our guy Mobius, who's, riding like he's riding the jet ski, having a good time. And he's a seller of jet, and it makes perfect. And it's like the year 2022, but it's
Yeah,
still another alternate timeline, and it makes sense now why he was so into jet skis and water. You know what I'm saying? Water
Tony,
sports stuff
Tony,
because
Tony.
uh-huh.
Did you peep where he was from? He was from Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, 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 right.
Yo, man is
Sorry,
selling
yeah,
jet
the
skis in
skis in
Cleveland,
Cleveland.
Ohio.
And he's trying to sell it to this dude. And what the dude said, he was like, hey, man, I came here for a dirt bike. And he was like, hey, man, but this is like the dirt bike of
He
the
said,
water, man.
hey, are you ready for your Poseidon moment?
Your Poseidon moment? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Cleveland, Ohio selling jet skis makes absolutely no sense unless they're doing it on, what I'm saying, the lakes,
Some sort of river or
in,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
river or something like that. And he sees him and Loki's trying to talk, hey, Mobius, my guy. And he's like, I don't know who that is, but yeah, he was like, hey, you want to get a jet ski? And then like Loki just feels so defeated at that point, and then he slips away, and he goes to our guy Obi or Boris, and they tried to make it seem like at first that Obi was okay, like he knew everything, and he did possibly the most ignorant thing I ever seen in my life. My man went to a bookstore, took a book off the shelf, went to the cash register and said, hey, yeah, I want to get this. He's just like, what's this book? She says, oh, I never seen. He was like, oh, it's great. I read stuff by this guy all the time. And he's like, and she's trying to ring it up. And she's like, it's not in our system. He was like, I just give you some money for it. She was like, no, I have to actually ring it up for our inventory. And then the other worker from the bookstore says, sir, we've told you before, stop putting your book on the shelf and trying to buy. Man, I had to stop watching and laugh for like 5 minutes because that dude really, that's some real niggatry type stuff right there. That was ignorant. What he
Tony,
did that.
you know the funny part to me was Tony. He said, yeah, science fiction is a very respectable genre, and she said, science fiction don't sell here. Behind the bookshelf, it was Michael Crichton,
Michael Crichton,
Stephen King, which is like science fiction horror. So I was like, it clearly sells there. So he just lied to that man.
Lied to that man in his face, yo, or whatever. And then he was like, yeah, I read this guy's stuff all the time. And so next thing you know, we see Ouroboros goes back to his like warehouse type thing. It kind of reminds
like his place at the TVA.
Right, looks like his place at the TVA, books and stuff all over the place or whatever. And he walks in, and then Loki just pops up and he's like, look, and Loki said the same thing to him that he said to everybody else. This is gonna be hard to believe, but I need you to listen to me. And then it just basically skips to he was like, oh, I believe you. I believe everything you just said. He was like, you do? He was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, science fiction. And he was like, yes, just like he said, just like in this great book right here. He's still trying to pawn off the book.
The Sons of Yorin. Like, boy, have I ever heard that book
before? Right. And so so they're talking, and like, you know, and the guy's saying, like, hey, you can't, he was like, how do I get back? He's like, well, it sounds like you can't get back to a timeline that doesn't exist anymore. And he was like, what? And he was like, yeah. Then he was just talking to him. And he was like, yeah. He started talking. He was like, what do you do? He was like, yeah, I'm a book writer. And he was just like, Loki was like, no. He was like, yeah, but my day job is, he says like, I'm a physics, like.
I'm a theoretical physicist.
A theoretical physicist. I teach theoretical physics, and, you know, I know all this stuff or whatever. But my passion is writing. My G, what? You basically know about time, space, and everything, and you was like, "Oh, I just want to write."
He said, "Basically, I'm just doing this so I can be an author one day." I'm like,
"Yeah, right."
It's like the ultimate to my side hustle to my main hustle,
right? And so he's talking, and then he explains like, "Well, look, I'm time skipping this and that." And he was like, well, it seems as if you might be able to control this. And Loki's like, yo, I can't control. He's like, yeah, man, you can. And so then he comes up with the idea of, well, it seems as if you're going to places where all your friends are, you know, so you're going there, so they must be connected to you or whatever. And then he was like, yo, he says, hold a minute, wait a minute, you got all this stuff here. Maybe you can make me a TemPad. And he was like, I don't know. I don't have the, say the knowledge or anything like that. Loki said, oh, yes, you do. He pulled that book out and gave it to him and said, you wrote this. And he was like, oh, really? He says, I might can. And then Loki time slips.
No, the funny part, Tony, he was like, well, he said, he wrote this. He was like, well, I did become a famous author.
He said, right. He said, wow, I did become a famous author. And Loki was like, yeah,
something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. Everyone has read this at the TVA. Oh yeah, the other part was too when he was trying at Mobius, and Mobius kept saying that you work at the TVA. He was like, don't you mean an ATV? ATV.
Oh, yeah, whatever. We got 2 of those upstairs.
There's 2 of those upstairs. And so then he time slipped back to Mobius. And Mobius is later on that day, and Mobius is like with his kids. By the way, it was also funny earlier. The store kept saying, "Hey man, your son is on the phone," and then the phone worker again, "Hey, your son is on the phone." He was like, "Did I tell you that?" And he said, "No, your other son." I'm like, "Mobius, you're a horrible father, yo. Your
He said,
kids are on the
"Hey,
phone.
someone call him back too." He said, "I gotta get this sale,
Tell him
yo."
I gotta get this sale." And so like Loki sees Mobius at the house with his kids, two sons, and he walks over to him and he's like, "Hey man, follow me in my crib. I was in the neighborhood. I saw you. I just want to say, hey, my bad, this and that." And he was like, "Well, hey, I want to sell you something. I got these two. I don't need two of them here." He was like, "Yeah, so yeah, you do like this, but this isn't your calling." And he's trying to talk to him, and then Mobius is like, "Hey man, you need to get the hell away from me," type vibe. I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go in the house. Just wait right here." And he was like, "No, this and that, blah blah." Time jumpy, telling Mobius, he's like, "Your name is Mobius." He was like, "Why you keep calling me that? That's not my name." And the next thing you know, a time door opens, and out comes Variant Obi with the most crude, oh boy, the most crude looking gigantic TemPad. And you know what was so funny about it though, Rashad? To me, that played back to how cell phones used to be in briefcases. How cell phones and how like you had a briefcase, the cell phones were so big and large and bulky, and then the TemPads at the TVA had become almost like cell phone
Yeah, that
size
was
type stuff.
definitely like
Yeah.
alpha version Simpad.
And then you even saw the gate, even though the gate was stable, it was flickering. It was like flickering because it was like so generic. And then like Mobius sees it and is like, "Oh, okay, okay, I guess I'll go with you guys," or whatever like that.
Like the real funny thing, like as Loki is trying to convince other timeline Mobius to come with them.
Uh-huh.
Ouroboros is in the background playing with the door on the
It
Simpad.
is yeah.
He's making it
It's
bigger, making
like
it smaller,
bigger,
put it in the
smaller.
air. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
It was so
It's just,
random, but so
and
funny to
then he
me.
was like, "Oh man, you created that in such a short time." He said, "I wouldn't call 18
18
months
months. He said,
18 months a short time. Really
yeah,
19, but
19.
I lost my job. My wife left me. I lost my job. My wife left me, so he had some extra time.
He
So he
said, yeah,
did
man,
that.
I had to take some time off because
Yeah,
I got divorced.
I got divorced. And in the process, he takes Mobius through the door, and it goes back to the part when Loki walks up on Mobius at the house, and he's showing him. They're showing each other, the time. And then Mobius is
Mm-hmm.
like, "Yo, man, my kids, man, I can't leave them." He was like, "Look here, man. You help me. I can bring you back at any point in time as you want. I can bring you back right." He said, "It'll be like you never left." He was like, "Your kids will be like you never left." He was like, "But I would know I left." He was like, "Hey, man, I need you to do this." Mobius agrees, and then they go and pick up B-15, you know what I'm saying, Hunter B-15, and then they go back and they pick up, Casey. Casey
Yeah.
comes along, and they're all there, and they're just talking, and he's just like, "Hey," and they're just like, "Hey, we need the temporal ore of everybody. Is there anybody missing?" And he was just like, "There's one person." And then what do we see? We go back to the McDonald's, and Sophie's coming out with her
McDonald's.
right, come out with her meal. She sits it on her truck. She turns her back. We see it start to spaghettify, but she don't.
Mm-hmm.
She looks and she's like, "What happened to my food?" Okay, whatever. Then Loki shows up and she's like, and he's like, "Look here, you're not gonna." She says, "What do you want, Loki?" And he's like, "Hey man, you remember?" She was like, "Yeah,
Yes.
I left and went." So when everything was popping off, she hit the He Who Remains TemPad and said, "Take me back to Mickey D's. Take me back to the Mickey D's." What she like, "Let me back to the Big Macs out there or whatever." And she goes back, and they're just talking, and then that's when we talked about earlier that Loki has the cathartic moment that, "Hey man, like I really miss my friends." And Sylvie's like, "Look here, yo, I understand what you're trying to do. You need to find your place." She says, and he was like, "Yo, how can you be so selfish?" She's like, I have a right to be selfish or whatever and to choose my path. Those people got plucked out of their timelines. How do you know they didn't want to go back? I know one person who probably didn't want to go back to their timeline, and that was Casey, aka Frank, because he was
Nah,
going to be on the
he
run.
was telling the whole time. He said, "Hey, do I have to go back to the exact same moment?"
Exact same moment. Right. It's like, what to go
Nah, yo, and
right
then Casey
there.
was on some, yo, like, can I just use the temp pad? You know what I'm saying? I
He
can go
said, so
anywhere. A park.
that thing anywhere
He
at
said,
a
how
park,
about a
a
bank vault?
bank vault.
OB was like, the hell what
Right.
you talking about?
He said, anytime, any place, anywhere, I could go.
He hit him with the Janet Jackson boy.
Right, right. Yo, my man, yeah, I was like, yo, Casey is a menace to society, man, for real.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so, and so they leave Sylvie, and
Hold on, before you get to that,
mhm.
another thing too that Sylvie said to Loki. Loki was like, "Well, without my friends, who am I?" And Sylvia says, "You got to write your own story."
Yep, you gotta
And
write your
he
own
and
story.
that was really like the exhale, like, all right, man, I gotta
Mm-hmm.
go and tell these people that
Yeah.
they gotta go back to their timeline. So they get back to the timeline, they are freaked
Mm-hmm.
the hell out that he's like, nah, go
Yeah.
home. And then
Man.
these people start disappearing on him, and they're looking at each other like,
No,
yo.
was that no, I think that no, the Sylvie thing happened first. When she was because she
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. This kind of happened like
Yeah.
simultaneously, like for real, for real. But yo,
Right. So Sylvie goes to a record store and they're playing one of my favorite R&B tracks, by the way, Love Don't Live Here Anymore, in the background.
I see what you
And
did there.
yeah, Love Don't Live Here Anymore. And they're talking and everything. And the next thing the guy's like, here, go listen to this. This will make you either feel good or not feel good. Whatever say basically what you want to feel. And they're sitting there, and then like everything starts spaghettifying, and he sees it, and he's ready, he's like, Sylvie. And she turns around and sees like her perfect timeline, like spaghettifying. The guy disappears, and she's just like, do do
Yo,
do. And
that
did you see when she went
scene
in? It
though.
Jason, she just went in. Like the slow spaghettification was just once
And
again.
then the record spinning in the air,
Yeah,
yo,
yeah,
like
yeah,
they was in a
yeah.
bag with with
Definitely
this
in a bag.
episode, yo.
And so she basically then shows up where Loki is, and they're like, "Hey," Loki's like, she comes and he was like, "Well," she was like, "Hey, what you need, man?" She was like, "Yo, the timeline just gone. We got to try to fix this or whatnot." And they was like, "Fine." And then Ouroboros, variant Ouroboros is like, "All right, let's go ahead and get the temp pad and see get these auras together so we can." He's like, "Hey man, where's the aura at? Where's the temp pad at?" And everyone's looking around, and everybody turned around and look at Casey. And he's like, "What?" And it was like, "Where's the temp pad?" He was like, "Man, I ain't got it." He's like, "Look, no, for real, I did not do anything." And then what happens? Everybody starts spaghettifying around
Yo, it was
Loki.
funny when OB was like, I guess it really was science fiction.
Yeah, I guess it really was science fiction. Everybody spaghetti, and then even Sylvie spaghettified, and then like
Yo,
Loki is
when she got
just.
spaghettified, it was sad. She was like, "Yo, there's nowhere else to run." I was like,
Mm-hmm. And then you see Loki, he's like trying to grab some of the spaghettification and trying to hold on to it or whatever. And he's like, no, no, no. And then he just screams and he goes back to like literally like 15 minutes before, or like
"Mhm,
literally 5 minutes before. And he's like, yo, I got control of it. And
finally."
he's like, control of what? He was like, my time slipping. I have control of it. I can go back to when I want to. And then Ouroboros was like, what? And then it ends with him time slipping back to, if I'm not mistaken, is that the point when Victor was about to go? When Victor was about to go out there to the loom, because he inside the TVA, and Prime Ouroboros was standing right there beside him, fade to black in the episode. Once again, like you said, Rashad, five, you know what I'm saying? They have been 5 for 5 on these episodes. One episode left. Once again, I have no idea where they're going. what, what,
Not a clue.
not a
Like,
clue. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like, I ain't even discussed this, but we're gonna get back on this eventually. It won't be today, but we're gonna get back on to have our season six. I mean season six, episode six, just like discussion and like theories and what's gonna happen in last episode type thing because there's so much more to talk about. And this has been a very enjoyable watch of television.
Yes.
For real. Like I can't even. I can't lie, yo. Like I'm looking back at my whiteboard to see just to look at what I watched this year, and this is probably one of the like the best series of the year, man. Like it's been very
when we
good.
do our end of the year thing, it's going to be interesting to see, saying the shows that we really right now. Right now, this and another show is at the top. They're like
so
right neck and necks, and this one right here. Yeah.
What's the other one?
We'll talk about that at the end of the year.
I can't even remember, yo. All right, yo. Let's see so much stuff, man. But yeah, that's it for this, man. Definitely. Again, appreciate y'all. If y'all on YouTube, you're watching this, man, go ahead and subscribe. Stop playing.
And
TikTok,
hit the like button.
IG, definitely. It helps a lot. It helps when you guys actually come back to the content and engage with it, even if it's okay. I'm sorry. Give me a minute. I need people to understand, especially when I make shorts or people make shorts online. The whole point is to hook your attention. That's the first 1 to 2 seconds, especially with something sort of controversial or something that you may not agree with. And then if you keep on watching it, that helps us out. And then if you comment, regardless if it's positive or negative, it still helps us out because the algorithm does not understand intent. It only understands engagement.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So if y'all want to engage with
us,
and
we love it when y'all engage with us
bro,
too.
Like I really do. Like even if you disagree, man, like that, like there's a way to have a conversation when you disagree and not be a jerk about it. And I'm being for real. Like I'm very conscientious about even if somebody's being super negative with me not to resort to like name calling or badgering somebody or calling somebody stupid, even though I'll be wanting to a lot of times because they be stupid as hell.
Listen, y'all, we aren't the people we were when we were younger in college.
Nah, I'm really not.
Trust me, no.
I'm not even the person I was when I first started doing this because I used to be back in the comments in my feelings, but like after a while, I was like, I don't want to engage with people like this online, so let me just let me get it together. But yeah, definitely keep engaging with us, man. We do love it. We love y'all. We will be back in a couple of days to talk about episode 6. Very excited, man. Very excited. Also, we'll be back. Shoot, next week's gonna be busy. We're gonna have the Marvels review. That's gonna be up Friday. And then we're gonna have Loki season 2, episode 6 finale review. Probably gonna do Loki first and then drop the Marvels on Saturday or Sunday. But because we know the order of importance here.
Yeah, pretty much. And then too, like listen, I know some of y'all are like, we have not necessarily trashed the Marvels, but we trashed we didn't trash Miss Marvel. It wasn't our cup of tea. Miss Marvel, everything, but I'm interested to see what they're going to do with this show. Not show, but with this movie. And once again, where my big thing, like we did a video a couple weeks ago, where is this leading to? Where does everything fall into the grand scheme of things?
Yep, that's what it's all about. Yeah, man. But that's it. Until the next time. Peace.